it's your boy back with another reaction video. I'll be reacting to 3 horror stories animated. It's a compilation of September Part 1. I can't remember the actual site. The site. I was on YouTube, but the actual channel I got this on. And this is from, I think, all of these stories are from like Mr. Nightmare Unit. Was it 5? Is it 552 or 522? And I think some other people that do narration, like spook horror story narration. And this guy, I want to say it's him. I don't know if someone else did it. He just has it on his channel, but I think he did animations to those stories. So yeah, but I'll put a link in the description if you want to go see it for yourself on his or her channel. I'm not sure their gender, but yeah, let's just get into this. Here we go. I almost kidding.
I'm 24, and this happened 5 years ago when I was 19.
I was almost kidding.
I was conducting an online transaction on a site called Alks, which is similar to Craigslist. It's an online app where you can see items being sold by random strangers, and all you have to do is make a call and meet up.
I almost bought a car
sweater for my trip to Japan the following week. After several minutes of scrolling, I came across an ad with exactly what I was looking for. A Korean-style female-fur sweater for just 300 pesos, about $6.
Oh, okay.
It was perfect.
Mexico.
I had issue with it. The meetup point was at the LRT train station at 8 p.m. because the seller was too busy at work. I decided, what the heck? It's a public place anyway.
Yeah, it's probably.
I called the owner and we had a quick convo. He sounded like a strict guy, but I asked him when we could meet up. He responded, tonight at 8 p.m. sharp. I said sure.
At 8 p.m. though?
But this recklessness of mine is what I regret the most. I arrived at the meeting place at 7:58 p.m. It was really empty, and I was sure I was the only person in the station. It was a cold night in November, and I eagerly awaited warming myself with my coat.
Because I've caught the L here
is comfortable
at
wearing
night.
a sweater even when it's hot.
It'd be empty.
I was sitting on a bench when the clock ticked 8 o'clock, when suddenly someone covered half of my face with a scarf with a really strange scent. I fell unconscious. As I woke up, I found myself in a van with 4 guys, my wrists handcuffed behind my back. I asked the man what they wanted and to please let me go. Tears began to fall from my eyes. But then, one of the guys touched my face and said, "It's our first time ever tasting a beautiful girl like you." I kept on crying and shouted, "Please, I want to go home, please."
Tasting.
The guy next to me choked me, shouting that I needed to shut up. I tried to resist, but my eyes started to roll back in my head.
Oh,
I stopped,
shit.
but it was taking a long time for me to catch my breath. I looked out the window and saw a checkpoint lane. For the first time in my life, I was so glad that the authorities had permission to check the van. But the guy next to me reached for a gun, a really big gun.
A sniper?
Knowing this was my only chance, I found the strength to shout and cried out, "Officer, please help! They have a gun!" The 2 officers immediately grabbed their guns, one shooting at the tires, the other aiming for the man next to me. The officer shot him in the head.
Ooh,
I never thought I'd witness such a thing in my life. One of the officers carried me out of the van, and I passed out moments later. I woke up the next day in a hospital bed. My parents were there, crying and asking me what happened. I told them the truth, that I was buying a sweater online. But I suddenly snapped. I cried and cried, saying, "Please help, please help." Since then, I've had to go to a psychiatrist to recover from mental instability and anxiety, and it should go without saying, but I never ever want to buy anything online, ever again.
I'm gonna stick to the stores. I don't know, you guys might get snatched.
When I was 7 or 8 years old, my parents used to take me to this beach cafe in our town. It had a pool and the cafe was right next to the beach. The family that owned the cafe were my family's close friends, so I spent a lot of my childhood there. The best part about the beach is that when you pass the cafe and the playground,
Why do
there's
I
a
think
lot of
that's
sand
weird?
and a net for
Place to
volleyball.
have a pool.
As kids,
next
my
to a
friends and
beach.
I would always play there. One ordinary summer night, there was quite a few of us playing in the sand, making castles and doing other things. All of a sudden,
And
I
then
heard
a
a noise
pedophile
behind me in the
comes.
bushes, right where the sand ended. I should mention that there were woods around the whole place, but it wasn't deep or anything. I was a brave kid, so I just brushed it off as being a cat or animal of some sort,
I was a
and
brave,
continued to play.
stupid, dumb
However,
idiot kid.
when I looked up at my friends who were now quiet and staying still,
Pennywise? What the
I
fuck is
got the
that?
chills. I noticed that all of their eyes had widened. They were staring at me, or rather at whatever was behind me. The shock kicked in, and I felt like I was going to faint. I started shaking. I didn't even want to turn around. But when I felt something cold on the back of my neck, that was the last straw. I started running full speed towards the cafe filled with people, and my friends immediately followed behind me. There were 6 children crying and
He ran
screaming at the
past
top of
his
our
friend.
lungs. I remember finally clinging to my mom and crying in her arms. Soon after, the sound of sirens followed by police cars parked in front filled the air. When the adults talked to the police, my friends and I were confused. I still didn't know what was behind me, so I asked my oldest friend in the group, who was 10 years old and talking to his dad. It turns out there was this crazy old guy who robbed a lady and stabbed her to death not so far away from here. My friends told me he appeared behind me smiling like a sick clown. He was holding a knife and pressing it against the back of my neck. And that must have been the cold thing I felt. From then on, I never stayed far away from the cafe when the sun went down. And thankfully, they caught the guy.
I feel like I can call Mark Hamill Joker. The actual Mark Hamill.
This happened a little over 20 years ago. I was 10 years old and my sister was 6. We grew up in a small town, raised only by our hardworking mother. It started when school was nearly finished for the year. The nights were late because my sister was up all night crying about a witch. Anyway, my mother started receiving odd calls once in a while at work.
I need one of your children.
I hate the sound of the phone.
Mom figures it was some stupid prank and ignored it. But then she started receiving calls daily. Eventually, she was receiving a call most nights at our home. She reported it to the police, and they said whoever was calling was using random payphones. There wasn't much they could do about it. So she had both her work and home number changed. One night around 10 or so, there was a frantic knock on our door. Mom looked out through the window and saw a lady with long hair in her 60s. Not knowing her, Mom went near the locked door and asked what she wanted. The lady asked if she could come inside because she was in a car accident. Mom said she would call the police for her and told her to wait outside. There was a pause.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
No, don't call the cops.
Mom thought this was strange and started walking to the phone. Immediately again, a banging on the door. Mom ran to the phone and looked out the window to see the lady staring at her. She coldly said,
Dorothy Margaret, I want one of your children. Dorothy Margaret, I want one of your children.
Whole name.
She kept repeating it until Mom noticed flashing lights of police approaching, and she left. The police searched everywhere and kept a car outside each night for a week. Nothing. A few weeks later, summer finally started and my sister wasn't having the nightmares anymore about the witch. We were at one of my baseball games and my mother was talking to a teacher at my sister's school and telling her what happened. The teacher said,
Oh, it sounds like your stepmother.
Mom looked back confused and said she doesn't have a stepmother. The teacher's face turned white. A while ago, a lady in her 60s would come watch the children play at lunch. She said she was my mother's stepmom and liked to watch my sister at lunch. She reported it again to the police, and they checked camera footage. Sure enough, on a faraway park bench, there was an old lady most lunchtimes. They noticed she was always coming from the woods, so the police did a search and found an old shanty shack type of place. It had old blankets and a fire pit, and it had pictures she had drawn of us. That was the last time we ever heard of her. When summer was ending, my sister started having the nightmares of the witch again. Mom asked why she was getting scared again, and she said,
Because she comes to school and watches us.
the witch was the old lady.
Bitch. I'd kill somebody. Fuck. If I have kids, like, I'd kill somebody. Like, don't fuck with my family. I will murder you with no emotion whatsoever. Like, it'd be like what was it? Was it Man on Fire? Yeah, it'd be like that. My screen just get darker for some reason. Yo. Oh, I think my phone died. But yeah. that last one. That was creepy. Somebody say your whole name like that, you like, how the fuck you know me? Like, just your first name, but I know somebody say your whole name like that, or your first and last name. Like, like, hell, and that other one with the choking her and shit, like we never. What you said? We never tasted a girl as pretty as you, or something. If that shit happened, like, that's why I always. I remember my brother did that to me when I was a kid. Like, he would come up behind me and grab me, and I remember I used to watch movies where you always see somebody come up behind, kidnap somebody, and they put like chloroform on their face. Like, it's like instinctively like hold my breath anytime my brother did that. Because the first thing he did, he scared, like, cause you jump, you breathe in, and that's exactly what they want. And I always just, I'm like, it just stopped breathing. Like instinctively did that part because watching those movies like that. And then my brother kept doing that thing, and the crap was funny. But anyway, hope y'all enjoyed my reaction, everybody. If you did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you did not, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. And make sure to comment, subscribe, and share. And I'll see y'all next video. Peace.